work together in multidisciplinary teams to provide full service guidance on the most complex legal matters and legal aid. This approach yields higher levels of commitment and morale, yielding better results from them as well as society. Akshat, please can you confirm, am I audible in that YouTube stream? Because I'm getting messages that I'm not audible. Okay, so, okay. Good evening to our esteemed resource person and our delighted participants. So here we begin our most awaited session come interaction. Lawtraction India was formed in 2018 and is only one in the country which has given free legal mentorship and counseling to approximately students, school students, etc. We have across the country worked together in multidisciplinary teams to provide full service guidance on most complex legal matters and legal aid. This approach yields higher level of commitment and morale, yielding better results for them as well as society. We have created India's first diplomat program where we enhance students' skill like negotiation, moderation, research, coordination, leadership, etc. so that we can add more value to our legal fraternity. We would like to strengthen to work more towards disseminating legal knowledge by organizing various campaigns, webinars, and workshops. Thank you for showing interest and such an active participation. Lawtraction India proudly brings today's e-seminar on an analysis of New Education Policy 2020 by Sir Dr. Radhakrishnan Pillai. Sir is a Ph.D. holder from University of Mumbai and has done extensive research on Kautilya's Arthashastra from Chinmaya International Foundation, Kerala, under guidance of Dr. Gangadharan Nair, who is the Dean of Adi Shankara Sanskrit University. Sir is an author of 17 best-selling books on Chanakya. On popular side, Dr. Pillai is known for his internationally best-selling book, Corporate Chanakya, and other books in Chanakya series. One of his very famous and insightful TED Talks on how to become rich. With nearly 25 years of experience, Dr. Pillai is a leadership speaker, trainer, and personal mentor who trains leaders and aspirants from various fields including corporates, politics, academics, and public services. He is a certified management consultant from International Institute of Management. Dr. Pillai is the director at SPM Foundation and founder director of Atma Darshan Pvt Ltd, which is a spiritual tourism company, and Chanakya Aanvikshiki Pvt Ltd, which is a leadership training and mentoring institute. He is also the deputy director and founder of Chanakya International Institute of Leadership, an institute of University of Mumbai located at Kalina campus. As a chairperson of board of directors, he is known for designing various leadership courses, including postgraduates and Ph.D. programs. He is a visiting faculty in prestige institutes in India and abroad, including IIT, IIM, Indian Institute of Science, among others. He has been a trainer and strategic consultant to over 500 organizations like Indian Army, Navy, Air Force, Indian Police, and various other NGOs, private and public and government organizations. He has been awarded the prestigious Sardar Patel International Award 2009 and Avishkar Chanakya Innovation Research Award 2013 for his research and contribution in the field of management and industrial development. Recently, he was honored with Lokmat National Education Leadership Award as the best professor in philosophy. He is rated among the top 30 Indian management thinkers globally by Thinker50.com and also rated as #1 business author. I would like Sir to take over and enlighten us with his analytical thoughts regarding new education policy 2020. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. First of all, a warm good evening to each one of you who is attending this particular program. And I'd like to first of all congratulate the team of Lawtraction, which has been doing a fantastic work over the last, I would say, almost a month, organizing this program and getting everybody on this particular platform. Let me tell you, I've been very highly impressed by the organizing skills, the way you have been working on it. The whole team is doing fantastic work. I'm so glad that this is a program organized by the students and for the students. And I'm sure the teachers and all the parents will also get benefit from this. Initially, we used to wonder how to organize a program. And here the students are taking the initiative of getting into a discussion on the education policy. So first of all, accept my congratulations, everyone at the Lawtraction team for giving me this opportunity. It is always said that, teachers usually have this privilege over the students of giving them marks, giving them, the kind of teaching that we have. But sometimes students give an opportunity to teachers also. So I like to thank the students.
Thank you so much, sir.
And also across India, I'm sure there'll be a lot of people who are watching from abroad also later on. So first of all, once again, a thanks to each one of you for making me come here.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much. So coming to the topic, it is a topic that is very, very, very important for each one of us. The reason being that the future of the nation, the future of our career, all depends on this particular topic that we're going to discuss. It is called the analysis of the National Education Policy 2020, as we call it NEP 2020. Friends, you know what? Before I actually think about my analysis to it, let me actually quote something which I heard many years ago but left a very profound impact on me. It said, a businessman should think 1 year ahead. He should plan 1 year ahead. A politician should actually plan 10 years ahead. And a teacher should plan one generation ahead. So you look at the thought process. A businessman usually has got this, cycle of, budgeting and financial year. So they plan 1 year ahead. But a politician always has to plan 10 years ahead. He has to be in power for at least 2 terms, as they say. So, 10 years ahead. But a teacher has got a major responsibility, and that is to actually plan one generation ahead. And I've been very fortunate to actually deal with one such great teacher of India called Chanakya, who actually taught almost 2000 years ahead. Not one or two generation, but generation after generation. And it is such a pride that we Indians have been the education leaders for the world. We Indians have been the education leaders for the world for generations to come. World over, people have come to our country to learn every particular subject under the sun, as they say, So many of you must have heard about it. We had great universities like Nalanda and Takshashila. We have even today contributing the whole world with subjects like yoga. We're talking about Sanskrit as a language and every other thing that we talk about. So India has been looked upon the whole world from a knowledge perspective. And if you look at from the perspective of the very famous quote, Hame Vishwa Guru Banna hai. So remember this word, Vishwa Guru, not Vishwa Neta. We are not here to become leaders of the world. We are supposed to be the teachers of the world. I think it's very, very important. India has never actually thought about competition. We were always in the field of knowledge. And in knowledge, there is no competition, there is only collaboration. So I think this is India's moment in history that we are actually going to be talking about something which is relevant to each one of us, to the nation, and also to the world. Yes, I'm going to talk about as an individual. We are going to get affected by the national education policy as a nation. And of course, the world is going to look upon us. In fact, ever since the national education policy has been out, I've been getting so many calls from my professor friends from across the globe. They've been actually, talking from Harvard and media saying, what can we do to contribute? What can we do to contribute? So think about it. Everybody knows about the economic way, India's GDP and the world's GDP and FDIs. But you know what, friends, you have to understand this, that the world is looking up the India's future from this perspective also. So I will be speaking on 3 points today. Okay, the first point is, what exactly is national education policy? So, many people say that there is something happening around, we don't know. So I'm going to give you a background of the first thing. What is a national education policy? The basics of it. The second one is the current national education policy, which we call as NEP 2020. So what are the important aspects? I like to highlight a few key of them. And the third one, which is very, very important, is the implementation of the national education policy. Okay, so I'm going to be speaking on 3 of them put together. The first one is, what is national education policy? Second one, the important aspects of this current national education policy. The third, implementation. And of course, the organizers have been kind enough to actually also take up a few questions at the end of it, which will be Q&A session. So let me start with what is national education policy. Before we go into the education policy, let us understand the concept of nation, and especially with respect to India. Remember one thing, we are a 70-year-old nation, 70-year-old, I would say almost 74 to be exact, as you say. We were not a nation before 1947. Please understand this very important part, that we were a kind of a country which had kingdoms or monarchies, or what we call the princely states. So till 1947, even though we were called India, it was a British India. And when the Britishers left us in 1947, there was a very important department which was headed by Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. and it was called the Department of States. If you read the history, and all of you being law students, you will understand the formation. The Britishers left us and we started a nation called India, which actually was initially 550 princely states. Understand this very important point. So 550 princely states coming together became the Union of India. Okay, so this is called very important shift, that we became a nation in 1947. And you have to understand the history that India, even though is a country which we call from 1947 onwards, India as a civilization has existed much before that. So we are a 1,000-year-old civilization, and we have a documentation of at least 5,000-year-old history. At least I'm talking about the Mahabharata, the Ramayana, Mahabharata, and various other Upanishads. But specifically speaking, even Kautilya Arthashastra, which I specialize on, is 2,400 years old. So you have to understand the difference between a nation and a civilization. So every civilization will have its own education systems, policies, and teachers. So do we have an education system in our country? Of course, we had, and it was one of the role models for the world. Now, during those particular time, who decided the policies? And if you go back, it was Gurukul system. So the teachers were given the freedom to decide what to teach, how to teach, when to teach, what examination, what assessment. So it was a very, very teacher-centric. Of course, there is an institution like the Gurukul. But what happened is that we have to realize, after the Britishers came in, first time, the education became something which was directed by the state or the government. And the very famous thing all of you must have heard is that one of the great parliamentarian came from Britain to India. His name was Macaulay. You remember that? And Macaulay actually went all around India. He tried to understand what is the strength of India. And then he presented a report to the British Parliament. And that is the first time we actually had a national education policy, even before India became free. And some of you must have heard about it. You can Google it and all those things. Yes, India's education system is very good. In fact, it is the best education system. And he said, okay, we need to introduce the British education system, the English education system. And what he actually tabled in the parliament, all of you being law students know how the whole process of making an act is, a policy is. So he tabled it, and let me tell you, there were a lot of debates and discussions in the British Parliament also. So it is not easily accepted. And many of them, he suggested that, education should be English-centric. But you will be surprised to know, there were a lot of people who objected, saying that if we teach them English, they will actually overtake us. In one way, if you look at it, that became a reality. So when the Macaulay Act, or I would say the suggestion, was given in 1857, okay, remember this word, there were 3 particular universities that were actually launched in India. And why the 3 universities? Because Britishers' administration system had the Madras Presidency, Bombay Presidency, and Kolkata Presidency. So remember, there were 3 universities, 1857, and the year is directly related to the first national uprising, as the Britishers call it. So remember, 1857, the 3 universities actually were formed under the British Act. And I've been very proud to tell you that I'm part of the Mumbai University, which has got a legacy of more than 160 years. And you'd be surprised that this education policy that came in already had a lot of debates and discussion. But somewhere it was accepted. And you know what? A lot of people actually went from India even to England to study law. Because if you look at it, there were a lot of colleges and all available in all these, so-called, very developed cities like Madras and Bombay. But the education system was very different. You'd be surprised that our freedom fighters who actually got us the freedom were actually lawyers. So all you lawyers should be proud that India actually has a great contribution by lawyers to get freedom. For example, Mahatma Gandhi, lawyer. Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, lawyer. For that matter, even Jinnah was a lawyer. Subhash Chandra Bose understood law. So Nehru was a lawyer. So please understand this, that law is a very, very important part of anything in any particular country. So we should be proud by telling it is our lawyers who gave freedom to India. So friends, why am I giving this particular background is that when they came back to study, after studying law, many of them practiced and they actually overthrew the British Empire. So you have to understand one thing, law is a very powerful thing. In fact, we say the common man is afraid of the politician, but the politician is afraid of the lawyer because the law can turn around a lot of things. Now, coming back to the point over here, that what is national education policy? So, as I told you, in the past, there was a Gurukul system which actually decided what is to be taught. And the students generally went to the Gurukul system. And when if you are part of a princely family, the teachers used to either come home and teach, or they would go to the Gurukul. Like we have Raja Ram going to Vashishta Maharaj. Krishna went to his Guru Sandipani. So remember, the one important part, everything was teacher-centric, and the teacher decided what is to be taught. And there was a Vedic system, a parampara. So let us not go into that. Now let us come back. What happened after Macaulay? English became a very important language. A language which actually today, if you look at it, became the strength of India, because today it's a global language. The colonial system actually gave the Britishers edge, and today we are the world's largest English-speaking country. Okay, so you have to also understand one thing, that it is something that also benefited us in a very big way. Okay, so let us respect whatever has been done. Now coming back to our particular thing is that the National Education Policy 2020 is not the first education policy. Okay, so remember, this is a very important thing. This is the third education policy starting from 1947. I request all of you to Google it. You'll come to know what were the other education policies. Now, please understand thing. In public policy, so since you are law students, you'll understand the meaning of the word public policy. It is not mera ghar ka policy, what is going to happen in my house. It is a public policy. Every particular person, citizen will be affected by it. And remember, the golden rule of public policy is that it is always time relevant or time irrelevant. So policy is always made with reference to what is the requirement of that particular time. For example, if you look at it, Corona, we are all facing the thing, and the government and the public health distribution system, the health system, is also working on policies, the national disaster policy. So we have to understand it is time relevant. So when the education policy was made, that time, what was the criteria will be very different now, because our generations have evolved. Our education policy has evolved. So before we talk about NEP 2020, let us first respect that whatever has been the education policy, with its own pluses and minuses, with strengths and weaknesses, it has contributed to the national development. So let us not, look at comparison. We said, yes, there was a problem and we have to work on it. Let us not get into which is right or wrong. We have to make sure that which is relevant. And therefore, every generation has got a responsibility to appreciate what is good in the past and discontinue what is not relevant. So please understand there were three policies, the third one. And if I were to look at it, statistically, when India got freedom, it is said only we had a population of 33 crore people. We are very poor. We had malnutrition as a problem. We did not have food to eat. We were fighting wars between India and Pakistan, which got divided. And you'd be surprised, only 17%, not 70, okay, 17% of the whole country of almost 33 crore were actually literate. I'm not even telling you educated, okay? Literate. So can you imagine what kind of a disaster that we were going through? Imagine your grandparents or great-grandparents couldn't even read and write. And somebody could read and write was a big thing, isn't it? So remember, from 1947, which was 33 crore people, and today we are talking about 135 crore people. We are almost reaching 100% literacy. So please understand, even though we are 4 times more than what we were, but the education is not 17%, it's almost reaching 100%. So let us respect that, we are now at least a country where everybody can read and write. That is the basic literacy. So let us respect it. So if you look at the previous education policy and that time, what was the kind of situation they were going through? Number one, you have to understand one thing, that India comparatively was behind the world as far as scientific development was concerned. So if you look at it, most of the scientific development was happening in London, and they had a cutting advantage, right from the steam engines to the industrial revolution, the factories. And that's exactly what Britishers globalized also. So if you look at the railway system, they came from India, from Britain. But of course, we made it better. We have our own metros, which we produced much better than many of them. So what happened is that when India got freedom, we realized one thing: we are far behind the education that is happening abroad. and especially the scientific era that Britishers focused on. So remember the Darwin theory, the Newton theory. Not that we were bad, but somewhere the science and technology was still the privilege of the West. And then what happened is that when we got freedom, the government realized that we can't be behind. So we need to be industrialized. So from an agricultural nation, we became focused on industrialization. And that's why a whole generation wanted to become engineers. Understand this, because they would get their jobs in factories. They will migrate from one place to the cities. And all the major cities, metros, either had factories or some economic activity. So it was a very, very fundamental shift for a country like India, which was primarily an agricultural society. Okay. I'm not saying tribal society. Okay. I'm talking about an agricultural society. Even today, most of festivals are dependent on nature. And suddenly everybody says, you want to make money, I need to go to a city where I'll work in a factory. And I'm sure many of you have stories in your own families where people migrated to work in a factory. And then they say, factory, I don't want to be a worker. At least my son or daughter becomes better than me. So that's where you'll find a complete generation of engineers and of course doctors. So that was the kind of a system. And luckily we had a system where, we did not compromise on only national education. They actually wanted international education in India. And that's why we actually started IIT IIMs. So it is not bad, even though only a few privileged could get into that, the number was small. But imagine the IIT IIMs, which started in 1960s, was a benchmark for the country. It was actually a copy of what was happening, the best practices in America. And we contributed. Please understand this. We contributed and we have the world's best CEO coming out from the same education system. The Googles and the Microsoft and the IBMs, they're all leaders from the same education system in India. So we were not bad. But later on, they understood one thing, that even though we are giving global world-class leaders, still 100% literacy wasn't there. So one very important change that happened in the education system was Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan. Okay, so one would say the Nehru era, and then there was the Vajpayee era. So Prime Minister Vajpayee, he decided that we should get into basic, because you can't only have the top guys becoming better and better. What about the common man? So, and that is one mission of the government, a public policy that has helped. So today everybody can read and write. Please understand this. So I think this is some fundamental things of the past, what national education policy has benefited our country. Now we come to a specific one, which is National Education Policy 2020, which has been currently discussed in July. It was part of the parliamentarian discussion, and now the policy is out. I would suggest each one of you to read that in detail. It is a document worth studying, because it's not just on the paper, because all of us are directly connected to it. Okay. So first of all, I would like to tell you that, it's a public document. It's available on all government websites, and some of you must have already seen it, but please read it. It is worth reading it line by line. And I'm very privileged by the grace of God that I've been also a small part of creating the national education policy. Very small part. So I don't think that I have drafted it. So, because being from the Mumbai University, had the advantage of the policy makers coming, a lot of discussions and debates. And later on, I was called to Bangalore, taken some ideas. So I'll tell you later on what are the kind of ideas that I have been able to contribute specifically. But the whole idea over here is that, this was something that has happened in 2020, but the work has been happening for over 5 to 6 years. Okay, so remember one thing, it is not an overnight thing, chalo karte hain. It's not a very impulsive decision. Let us forget the political angle to it. Of course, there'll be a political dimension to it. But one good thing that happened is that when the education minister, Prakash Zavadekar, who actually, started the initiative, he made it very clear that the national education policy should actually be something that will come from the educationalist. You understand, this is very important point. The freedom was given to the teachers to decide. So at least fundamentally, they decided there shouldn't be less political interference. Of course, if you look at the whole BJP agenda, it is there in the manifesto. But I don't want to discuss that. But at least I know for sure that whenever I was a part of the discussion, it was not a political agenda. But there was debates and discussions and committees. And it is not an overnight thing. As I told you, so many years. Imagine, I was actually paid to go to Bangalore for a 3-day discussion. And we had a workshop among teachers saying that what should be done, what should not be done. They were pointed, it went to that, and so many paperwork was done. Finally, something that coming out in 400 pages. has more than 4 lakh hours being invested by so many educationists. I remember there was a meeting that was called to Delhi also. And, a school teacher from, a very rural state to a principal of, a Delhi public school. So you understand this. So it is not that, we were not involved. So I think the teachers are involved. They looked at what we call a SWOT analysis: strength, weakness, opportunities, threats. And they said, okay, what should we do? What should we do? So I think the good news is that there was a lot of involvement of teachers. Okay, I think that is the one of the biggest thing. It was not less, okay, do it because we are telling you. It's not like that. The other example I want to tell you before I proceed is that, in debate and discussion, there is a general rule. Okay, and that is, you may like or not like, but at least you should have a say. Okay, it may become a part of the actual policy or no, but everybody should be heard. So I think it was very important that everybody was heard. And in one of my books called Chanakya, I have written, I may not agree with you. I may not agree with you, but I will not take away your freedom to disagree with me. So it's a very, very powerful thing, and especially all lawyers, future lawyers should know this. A debate and discussion is not about right or wrong. It's about being heard. So I may not agree with you, but I will not take away your freedom to disagree with me. So I have seen this, the debates and discussions and this and that. It's okay. It was fun. Let me tell you, it was real fun because this was a kind of a workshop that we attended. We had to write a chit of paper and saying that what do you think should be there, what should be removed. So I think more than the end of the journey that we have the document called the National Education Policy, the journey itself was very amazing. So you're going for a picnic, but remember, it is not the picnic destination. It's a journey also, right? So you enjoy, you play Antakshari, you go in a common bus or a carpool. So I think this 4-5 years of actually going through the education policy also, we teachers who are involved have really enjoyed it. Whether it was accepted or no, it's a different thing. So I like to tell that, it's a very great process. And therefore, I would say this is something that we should all be proud about. Okay, so I would now go into the second effort. So I told you broadly what is a national education policy. It's a public document which is actually initiated by the government. But finally, now since it's there in front of each one of you, it's an official document, we need to look at it something seriously. So I come to my second point, the important aspects of the national education policy. You know what, when the document came, a lot of people don't even know what is happening, kya ho raha hai, kya hone wala hai. So I would suggest that, it's a big thing and a lot of things is going to be there. But, I would just talk about 2 or 3 finer points, because once you read it, you'll understand it. So it's not about this is the only thing, but it's a huge document and you cannot cover up all the details in, maybe half an hour. But first things first is that the education policy will be local and global. So it's a great combination. So remember, what is the meaning of local and global? See, if you look at our country, okay, our country is a very interesting country because it's a very unique country with so many diversities. So if you go to Kerala, it's already the highest educated or literate state. Okay, and if you look at it, a 3 crore population and 100% literate. But if you look at some other, states, they're still fighting to get into the basic education. And think about, one of my favorite states called Bihar. Okay, Bihar has produced Chanakya, one of the greatest things, but they're still saying, we need to get educated. So I have this whole combination of being from a Kerala origin, where my grandparents were actually part of the teaching community. Half of my uncles and aunts are teachers, half of mine, and half of my cousins are IIT, IIMs and PhDs. So I come from a state where 3 generations ago, 4 generations ago, we understood the importance of education. Well, there are still states in India where, they're getting the first generation educated. So we have to respect the diversity. So locally, there are some challenges and advantages also. Now, the second thing is that we have many multiple languages. India is not one culture. India is one culture which includes multiple cultures. For example, the way we actually celebrate certain festivals in one place is very different. Of course, we are all connected to nature. There is nothing wrong in that. But I think we have to respect that our food habits are different. Our languages are different. Our cultures are different. Yet, we have respected the diversity. So one thing important about the education policy, it gives you the strength, okay, of being localized, at the same time having a global approach. Very, very important. And let me tell you, friends, initially, especially my generation, we studied in school, we used to only get information when we went to the library or to the teacher. So the teacher used to open up a whole world. But today's generation of yours actually knows more than the teacher does. So you would Google it, and today teachers have this challenge, saying that, oh, okay. But remember, friends, Google search is not research. Information is not knowledge. So therefore, teachers will always be relevant. So you have to understand one thing. Today, information is available on the fingertips, and you don't have to pay for it also. So unlike our generation, we had to go to a school or a college or go to a library and then find out what is happening in the world. So I would say it was a very different generation. So the national education policy actually includes local. Maybe, you can teach local languages. Most important, it can teach you local stories. Because there are so many stories which are untold. We cannot have just, 5 stories at the national level. There may be 500 stories at the local level. Please understand this. So when you go to a place like Indore, how many of you know Ahilya Bai Holkar was a great woman leader? At the national level, we have heard about Rani Lakshmi Bai. She was a great woman leader. But not many people know about Ahilya Bai Holkar, who was instrumental in, a very, very important development of, some culture in Maharashtra and Indore and Madhya Pradesh. Go down to Kerala. There were at least 16 women leaders who were part of the governance, not one or two. The Travancore system. Okay, so nobody knows. So, unfortunately, even the localites are struggling, except for Dada Dadi ki kahaniya, they don't know about it. So it's very important that we find the local, but at the same time, global. Okay, so what's happening today? If you look at the digital era, each one of us has to understand what's happening in America or UK or maybe a country like Fiji or Suriname. We should know what's happening. So it is very, very important to know that we cannot just glorify India, but we should know the best practices happening globally. So I think this is something very fundamental, local strength, global approach. And this education policy gives you that fineness. It talks about digitalization. It talks about education curriculum. It talks about open learning programs, a lot of things. So once you read it, you'll come to know about it. Now, another important factor about this, which probably is everybody's major thing. So there are 3 levels of education. One is called elementary, or what is called school education system. And as you know, initially it was 10 plus 2. What is the meaning of 10 plus 2? 10 standard, 1 board exam, and 12 standard. And then you go to college, which is degree, and then is higher education. So all of us have heard about this 10 plus 2 kind of thing. Again, I like to tell this system has worked for us because the same people who come out have become global leaders. They've been accepted. And let me tell you, my dear friends, that a graduate in India doesn't have too much value till you go abroad. Because not many countries actually have graduation programs. And even if there are, not many people take it. I want to make this very important point. Having traveled to some of the best countries in the world, as long as you can read and write, that's education. But not true, okay? Even today, we have to understand that if you're a graduate in India, you have to just go abroad with a Mumbai University or a Delhi University degree. And you'd be surprised. They say, wow. And just look at your passport. There is something called as immigration not required. So if you're a graduate, you are respected. But here we say, graduate, but we don't have a job. But you have to understand one thing. This 10 plus 2 is something that has helped. And of course, graduation, which is generally 4 years. After 12th standard, either you become a law graduate or things like that. So coming back, this education system will be having the 3. No doubt about it. So it will be school, then higher education, and of course the university education. But then it will be a little bit different. It will not be just 10 plus 2. It will be 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4. So I would again suggest all of you to go into the document to understand. So what is happening is that it will be, right from the beginning, even before you start going to the first standard. So there are some policies which says, everybody should know basic thing. It is not just going to the class and learning how to read and write, but, the hand movements to the thinking skills, everything is there. But the good part is that you have a choice to choose your subjects. Usually students don't have a choice, isn't it true? So whatever the syllabus you have to learn. And already you have seen in a lot of schools and colleges that, it's all becoming project based. So it is not about mugging up and giving examination. Unfortunately, our education system has become an examination system. You only study to actually give an exam and to get a mark. And after you get marks and a graduation, you get a job. No, I don't think so. Your generation doesn't care for jobs. And please don't care for jobs. Because your generation should not think about our generation or my parents' generation, where we were a survival generation. Please understand where we came from. We could not afford to experiment. We were worried about the next food. If you just listen, you'll understand this. Our generation wasn't so fortunate like yours. So, getting a job, probably one person in the family would feed 10 people in that family. So education was like the hope of that family. Education was the dream of a family, not for a whole family, but even if one person gets educated, it was like a breakthrough. But I think now you don't have to worry about this. So I think one of the greatest things all of you can worry about is, instead of looking out for a job, how will you create jobs? So your generation will be of enterprise, entrepreneurs, startups. So I think one of the very important thing is that how do you know what startup till you experiment? So I think the good part about the education system is that you will be doing a lot of hands-on programs. So school will be all about todo, podo or sikho. So I think that is one very important thing. I want you to Google it, okay? Todo, podo, sikho. There is a small policy one of our friends actually recommended. Till you break it, you will not learn it. So, usually our parents would say, I just bought a toy and you broke it, but you don't realize, mama, actually I'm trying to understand the engineering behind the toy, so I broke it to understand the mechanism. So I think what's very important, a fundamental shift that's going to happen is that it is not going to be mark based just for the sake of getting a certificate. It's going to be about choose. Now coming back to the next thing, after 10+2, when you go, now here is a very, very fundamental difference. Usually suppose you joined a science or a arts or a commerce graduation program. Typically it will be a 3-year program. And sometimes it's 4 years in engineering and things like that. And law could be, sometimes 5 years also, depending on what course you choose. But there's a major fundamental problem in that. What are the fundamental problems? Suppose I took first year BSc, okay? And I did second year BSc. And third year, unfortunately, I only, could not give, for whatever reason, 2 papers. And I failed. So think about it. You already spent 3 years and you could not clear only 2 papers. Now what happens? Lifelong you will be an undergraduate. So you have to still clear that 2 papers, and otherwise you're not a graduate. And we have 80 KT system, keep your term and all those things. Now you'll be surprised to know, imagine you have cleared the whole first year. You have cleared the whole second year. You have cleared the third year except for 2 papers, but still you're an undergraduate. And I know so many people of my generation, when they go for a job, they still consider 12th pass, not a graduation pass. So look at the frustration. No? So one good news is that you have the advantage of not just completing and getting a certificate in the third year or the fourth year. You can actually get a certificate every year. Yes, that is very, very fundamental. For example, you took first year, maybe science. Okay, no problem. And you completed, so you'll get a certificate. Okay, second year, you'll get a diploma. Third year, you'll get an advanced diploma. And fourth year, you'll get a degree. So suppose you quit. After second year, you are not saying that, you're 12th standard pass. You're 12th plus probably a diploma. Isn't it good? So every year, you don't just get a mark sheet, you get a certificate, depending on the hierarchy. Very, very important. So it's important to know that this education policy gives you the freedom of actually living a course in between and still be qualified with a certificate. Isn't it good? Many times it happens, I know with engineering students, they say, I'm pulling out my engineering. Why? Because मेरी मम्मी ने कहा है बेटा जिंदगी में जो करना है कर ले लेकिन इंजीनियर बन जा. So I'm not doing it because I love it. I'm doing it because it's a social pressure. So understand thing that it's your generation which decides, I don't want to do this, it's fine. Now very important that suppose you did something first year and you want to change the stream. Interestingly, you can go to another stream also. And you can carry forward what is generally called as credit-based system. So it's not just marks, it's credit-based system. And what's very important is that credit-based system is accepted anywhere nationally and globally. Let me just repeat that. So suppose I decided that 1 year I did that and I want to go from, let's say, Mumbai and do one course in Kerala. The credit system is like my bank balance, So I can use that 100 rupee note or 1,000 rupees in my state. I can use it in some other state also. So this is something you should fundamentally know, that shifting gears is okay. So you can go abroad, come back also and do it. So it's almost like global. So this credit-based system, we already have this in the Mumbai University. Some of my students come from abroad and some of my students go abroad also. So many times I'll give an example of a student of mine who actually got a job in UAE. She's a HR director over there. And she sent me a mail saying that, I have a degree on leadership science. So sir, can you convert that into a credit? So I just gave a conversion and believe me, it was accepted there. And I had my student who actually did a program in US and came back. It was accepted in Mumbai University. So this is very fundamental. It's not just marks, it's credit-based marking system. So it's a little bit technical, but if you understand it, that's a great thing. So you'll get a certificate, you can go. The other important factor which you have to understand is that you can choose between different subjects. So initially what used to happen is that you could only learn what is there in the syllabus which the teachers decided. But imagine there are 10 subjects and you want to choose different subjects from different streams. So number one is that I want to do something in mathematics. I want to do something in culinary science. I want to learn cooking. Somebody says, I want to learn Carnatic music also. And somebody says, I want to learn, something else. So the good part is that you can actually experiment, including Vedic mathematics. So it thinks it is like a buffet dinner rather than your mummy deciding and telling you, this is what you have to eat, whether you like it or no. A lot of people get frustrated, say, I don't want to study this, I hate this subject. But you say, okay, now here is a buffet dinner. You choose everything, okay, little. And then you say, okay, I like this and I take this forward. So this is generally called elective systems. So some of you may know this, that, you can elect and select rather than, so it's like a buffet dinner. You taste everything and you find, I never thought this is good. So then you can fill the whole plate. So understand, so these are the kind of a finer things that, you can choose right in your school, your college, you can leave it halfway, come back, blah, 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 blah. Now, another important parameter, especially the important aspect, we will be having a lot of money being pumped into the education system. This is very, very important because, a lot of people, especially our parents must have seen, they're struggling to pay the fees. Of course, there is a big debate about private and public, how do you fund it? So till now, education, like any other particular important aspect of the nation, may or may not be getting the enough funds. Of course, we have the municipal schools and we have the IIMs and IITs, but slowly they say it's not enough. So there'll be a large percent of the GDP, gross, as you say, the economic theories, gross domestic production, that will be going back into the education system. Now, who is going to use that system? Both private and public. So don't think that only the government schools will get it. So the public schools and the private schools both will get it. Now, what is going to be used for? Generally, when you get, in a country like India, use it for infrastructure. Acha classroom, acha equipments, laptops. Very, very important is that they'll be investing a lot into R&D, research and development. And that's where your generation has to understand this, that your generation will also get funds, not only remember this very important point, especially higher education, not only to fund your fees, that's only a very small part of it, but actually to fund your research. And this is something I want all students to take it seriously. Please learn how to apply for research projects. Very, very important. We have never been trained. It's like, when you're joining or want to start an entrepreneurship, journey in your life, you generally go for an angel investor or somebody will invest into your company, somebody who will fund you, a venture capitalist. All of you know that stories, right? But have you ever thought that if I'm good at something, I want funding? And I am telling you, I've got enough funding from the government, as much as 2 crore rupees just to fund my research. And this is something probably people don't understand in India because we don't have a research culture. We have a culture of, writing exams. So we mug up and we say, this is what you write. Before the exams, I am wise. I know everything. After the exams, I am wise. I remember everything. But during the exam, I am otherwise. I forget everything. So you have to understand one thing, writing an exam is only one small part of it. That's why your whole coaching class industry, as they say, they only make you repeat and just write exams. I'm not against coaching classes, but you have to understand one thing. Why do we go to coaching classes? Because, we are very afraid of getting marks. And they actually train you to repeat everything again and again and again. But unfortunately, we have realized one thing. Just because you got a good marks doesn't make you a thinker. Only a researcher is a thinker. So I think one thing probably all of you have to think about is that how to apply for research grants. Please note it very seriously. Not everybody will tell you, including the teachers may not know this. In fact, I've been part of the teaching faculty. I've been telling my teachers also, please apply for fellowships, research. So some people understand, junior research fellow, senior research fellow, especially when you're doing PhDs. So if you don't know about it, this is something you will get money even when you're a student. Congratulations. Okay, I'm not talking about earn and learn scheme. Okay, please understand this very fundamental. What is earn and learn scheme? maybe you are a student and then you teach somebody else and you earn something. No. This is fundamental shift. There will be a lot of funds that will be coming in, but you should think like a researcher, especially in higher education, not just getting degrees. Okay, so it's very, very important that you think like a researcher. That's why today, YouTube can be a starting point of research, but you have to look, you have to make prototypes. You should also have copyrights, IPRs, intellectual properties. So remember one thing, India has to create the Googles of the world, but it has to happen in the education system itself, not after coming out of the education system. Therefore, a lot of colleges have started incubation centers. Some of you may know it. So, the entrepreneur cell, but nobody understands how to do it. So, including the teachers, and it's an experiment. And let me tell you, no incubation center can be good till you get funds. So, friends, पैसा आने वाला है, लेकिन पैसा आने के लिए क्या करके लोगे? So, please understand, very important skill you should develop is to write research proposals for getting research funding. We know how to write business proposals to get business funding. But can you start actually writing research proposals? And that is a very important aspect that's going to come in NEP, National Education Policy. That's a very, very, very fine thing. So I spoke about flexibility. I spoke about 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4. Okay, now one more point I like to make about the important aspect is that Prime Minister Modi ji, when he was speaking about the National Education Policy, said something very profound. He said, education was initially telling us or teaching us what to think. Okay. Now we should have an education policy that will help us how to think. So from what to think to how to think, and you'd be surprised. That is where my contribution comes in as an individual. Okay. You'd be surprised. Chanakya, the great teacher whom we still respect, said the first subject that should be taught is how to think, and that is called Aanvikshiki. Many of you know what is it? Aanvikshiki was the first subject that was taught in the Gurukul. How to think, Anvekshan, inquiry, investigation, creativity, curiosity. If you look at the Government of India's very important department, CBI, Central Bureau of Investigation. Now, Sushant Singh, everybody's investigating, isn't it true? CBI has got involved. But what is investigation? It is not just about a murder or a suicide, okay? Investigation is the best thing your mind and intellect can do. There is a beautiful saying I had heard, a joke of course, saying that I was born intelligent, the education ruined me. Because I want to think out of the box, and you said, no, think like me. I don't want to become an engineer. You better become an engineer, otherwise how will you get married? I don't want to become a doctor. We have a hospital, I'm your dad, you better run that hospital, you better learn it. I want to be an original thinker. I want to be an artist. I want to be a YouTuber. I want to do something in artificial intelligence. I want to do something in robotics. But parents and the society, the whole society will tell, no, what to think we will decide. How to think you don't have the freedom. My dear friend, this is where you have to understand this fundamental shift. We are introducing something called as Aanvikshiki of Chanakya in the education system. If you want to know more about it before it comes to your school, you can Google it, my Radhakrishnan Pillai and Aanvikshiki, a lot of things. So you will be actually learning how to investigate, inquire, and think. Okay. Central Bureau of Investigation is called as Kendriya Anvekshan Bureau. Anvekshan. So your mind should be inquiring, isn't it? So when you think, what is the meaning of this word? Okay, what do you do? Google, isn't it? Tak, and you get it. Now imagine the whole education system telling you to ask questions, debate, discuss, and bring out your own conclusion. I think lawyers know that. So you don't have to get into that debate. But I'm telling you, it's not just lawyers. Everybody should be an original thinker. Please understand this. Everybody cannot be equal. Nature never likes equality. Okay? Nature likes uniqueness. Two identical twins also can't be the same, isn't it? And that's why Aadhaar card as a biometrics, isn't it? Your retina to your thumbprint. Not a single person in the past, present, or future can be equal. Isn't it true? So you have to understand this education system will help us to think unique, original. That is Aanvikshiki. So, I've been working hard, and one very good news. Okay, Kendriya Vidyalayas, 1,300 schools from this year have started to actually train students in Aanvikshiki. So that is Chanakya's contribution. Okay, so the original Chanakya. So that's the first thing. The second, very important thing, which probably I'm privileged to be part of it, you'll be also learning leadership as a subject. Leadership. Everybody is a born leader, but everybody is made to be a follower. Thanks to the British culture. Dande maar maar ke. But Mahatma Gandhi said, no, Swarajya. Okay, I am a leader, I am independent, I am free. So everybody should be a free thinker, Aanvikshiki, but everybody should think like a leader. So wherever you go, you should be a leader. If you're chosen law as a field, be a law leader. Sports, be a great sports leader. Businessman, politician, artist, scientist. Unfortunately, we're all being trained to think like followers. Somebody else decides what's our career. Somebody else decides what's our salary. Somebody else decides what am I supposed to do. That is not leadership. As a nation, we have to come out of that mindset of followership, but come out as a leader. And by the way, leadership is a science and it's an art also. And I have been fortunate that at the Mumbai University, we have the Chanakya International Institute of Leadership Studies. We teach postgraduate students 2 years, like an MBA, okay? And there are 16 papers on leadership. So my dear friends, it is not only at the higher education, we are introducing leadership at the school level also. And if there's a class of 30 students or 60 students, each of them can be a leader. Initially, the monitor is the only leader of the class. No. Maybe you are good in academics, somebody is good in music, somebody is good in something else. So you have to understand one thing, two important contributions is to actually think like a leader, be a leader in your chosen field. Otherwise, it's all about comparison and competition. शर्मा जी का बेटा को इतना मार्क मिला, तेरी बड़ी दीदी को इतना मार्क मिला, तू मूर्ख है. You understand this? It's a social problem. See, this comparison has actually made us feel jealous of each other. It's actually created more enemies than friends. Education is the time when you should actually build lifelong friends. But what have we done? We actually only created more and more enemies. We are jealous of the person who gets more marks than me. Isn't it true? But you have to understand one thing. This is where the fundamental social change has to happen, not the policy change. As a society, we've been always living with a mindset which is about scarcity. But your generation should think about abundance. Instead of survival of the fittest, you should think about live and let live. तुम भी खा सकते हो, मैं भी खा सकते हो, साथ में मिलके और 4 जन को खिला सकते हैं. So this is a very important thing, and no education policy can bring in till you accept that broad-minded thinking. Friends, we have to move from competition to collaboration. Okay, please understand this, from competition to collaboration. And I'll tell you, marks are important, but marks is only one way of evaluation. Okay, please understand the mark doesn't give you anything. And we see so many people committing suicides. I feel so bad about it. I remember this joke that, once a board exam marks were out and one girl was crying and one boy was dancing. Somebody asked the girl, what happened? What happened? You got less marks or what? You failed or what? No, I didn't fail. I only got 98%. Because the other girl got 99%. Okay. And they asked the boy, what happened? Why are you dancing? You know what? I got 35%. I passed. So, this boy was not even sure whether I'll pass in 35%. So you look at the happiness. It is not about marks. It's the way you look at it. So the boy said, I pass ho gaya. Happiness. And the other girl says, I got 98, but the other person got 99. So in spite of getting 98, you're still comparing. My dear friends, I have this simple suggestion to all of you. Don't compare. See, everybody in a class is a lifelong friend to you. Remember one thing, today you may be number one in the class and somebody may be, but life can be very different. We always say, backbenchers actually became the leaders of the society. And the front benchers go and get a job. And the whole life is decided from increment to increment and promotion to promotion. So very, very important fundamental shift. I'll come to the third point. Okay, very important third point, which is about implementation. Remember I told you about 3 points. One is what is the national education policy, the history and the background to it. Second is important aspects. You should read about it in detail. You will get it more. Some finer points I told you. The third one is implementation. Now, many people ask me, what is this national education policy? Kab hone wala hai? Kaise hone wala hai? Now let me tell you, since many of you are going to be future lawyers, a policy, when it gets implemented, there are a lot of challenges also. Okay, so this is called implementation problems or teething problems. Nothing is going to change overnight. Okay, please understand this. So this national education policy is a framework, but at the same time, there'll be freedom for the teachers, the students, and the state governments to decide what to do with it. Okay, so there's a framework, but this is not a decision. No policy will be successful till it is implemented successfully. So we have a major role to play there. So don't just wait for, something to fall from the sky and say, India is a great country because we've got a national education policy. Now you have to understand one thing: what is your role and contribution to the national education policy? Yes, but the policy is made. What is my contribution? Your contribution comes in implementation. Very important. So how do you look at it? Now I'll give you something specific. See, I'll tell you, in our country, education comes from three things. Okay, please understand this. In our country especially, education first comes from our parents. Isn't it true? So we say, first guru is your mother, then father, and then acharya. Matru devo bhava, pitru devo bhava, then acharya deva. Acharya is the teacher. So before you go to the school, you first get educated in the house. So first teachers are your parents. Second are your actual teachers in schools and colleges. You know who are the third teachers? Let us not forget it. Your own friends. You learn from your friends, isn't it true? So when you have a doubt, you don't ask the teacher. You ask your dost, bata yaar, samajh mein nahi aaya. And the friend will tell you in a casual, oh, because sometimes you cannot ask the teacher everything, right? So education generally comes to us. Knowledge comes to us from the family, from the teachers, and of course your friends. Some of your friends, when you discuss with all the three, your parents will be equally confused. Teachers are also wondering, what is this national education policy? In fact, I was just speaking to a principal, and I'm going to train the teachers on national education policy. So don't think that the teachers know everything. Huh? So teachers are all the pata nahi, and especially if you're in a government school or college, everything is about rules. So there, generally say, okay, I mean, now what to do. So I'm telling you, there's just a little bit of uncertainty. So parents will be uncertain, teachers will be uncertain. But let me tell you, you at least don't be uncertain. You enjoy the process. Don't get confused. I think jo bhi hai, dekha jayega, but we'll make the best use of it. Okay, so you don't get into confusion. You guide each other. And you lawyers have been trained for debate and discussions, right? So don't be cynical about it, but learn to be critical about it. What is the difference between cynical and critical? Cynical means sab kuch kharab hai, sab kuch kharab hai, sab kuch kharab hai. You always look at the dark side. Critical means there is a good side, there is a bad side. There's a good side, there's a bad side, right? So you have to evaluate it. So once you read it, you say, okay, and believe me, you can propose ideas. Now I'll tell you something very fundamental. In education policy, even now, even before the NEP came, there is something called as Board of Studies. I don't know if you know about this. Board of Studies is something every education curriculum requires. So who are the Board of Studies? You know this? It's basically experts of that subject will come down, debate, and they will make a syllabus. But in universities like Mumbai, in the Board of Studies, we also require a student member. Are you aware of this? You may or may not know, but ask your teachers, they'll tell you. Like, I'm in the Board of Studies of many colleges, institutions, of course in the Mumbai University, at least 7 of them. And we actually take the input of the students and saying that, what do you think?
6 o'clock.
What do you want? So it's very, very important to understand the fact that you can be part of the implementation. So don't wait for the teachers to tell you, go and contribute. So you should know how to write research proposals, as I told you, study it. It's beautiful. It's not fighting against the teachers, against law, saying that I learned law from you and now I'll put a case against you. No. You say, why don't we do this? Why don't we do this? It's going to be fun. It's going to be like, you and me together. So your parents, your friends, your teachers, everybody can look at the implementation. So study this. The second important thing is that we have to understand, and the implementation is going to take time. It's not going to happen overnight. So it's going to take 2-3 years to understand it. Of course, the policy says, we're talking about one generation ahead. They're ready to invest for next 20 years. So when is this going to happen? It all depends on us, how fast we adapt and how fast we implement it. Just because the government has given a policy doesn't mean it's going to change overnight. But if you are ready to change, you can do it in this year also. Practically speaking, you'd be surprised. A lot of things are going online without a choice because of the corona problem. So, in the national education policy, it was quite surprising to know they were already talking about digital and online education. But it never saw that the corona will make it 100% online and digital in this phase, So a lot of things are getting implemented faster than what we taught. And, they're saying we have to teach the trainer, teachers, we have to give, but it's already happening. Everybody's already online, isn't it? So everything is suddenly going online. And you should thank the corona for saying that, you made our education policy implemented earlier than what we taught. Okay, so I think implementation is something we have to contribute rather than debate and discuss. Okay, what can I do? Can I make my own projects online? Today, Ph.D. vivas are taken online. Projects are submitted online. So I think it's a natural thing that has come to us. We're adapting fast. And a country like India, with all of them going digital, look at the revolution that we will create. The last point which I like to mention, friends, is a Chanakya story. Okay, because I'm from the field of Chanakya, right? So many people ask this, that what is Chanakya's mindset? Remember, he was a thinker, teacher, a great educationist himself. So the typical example that was given to understand Chanakya's mind is a glass that is half empty and half full, isn't it? So many of you know this example. So if you look at a pessimist, he will say the glass is half empty. The optimist will tell the glass is half full, isn't it? So that's a two way of looking at it. You know how Chanakya would look at it? Okay. Chanakya would say the glass is already full, half full. What can I do to fill up the remaining? So he's not talking about analyzing. Remember, our subject for today is analyzing the national education policy. But after analyzing, what is the action from A to A? A lot of people analyze. But after analysis, what? You have to implement. Then actionable kya hai? Chanakya would say that you have analyzed it. The glass is half full. Good. So you did not fill it up. Somebody else did it for you. Isn't it true? So congratulate. So मेरे को ग्लास खाली नहीं मिला, आधा पूरा भर के मिला है. अभी मैं क्या कर सकता हूं to fill up the remaining? That's your contribution. So instead of being cynical, critical, be a contributor. So friend, next 20 years you all be teachers. And look at the subjects you can choose. You can actually have a course on how to be a YouTuber and make money. Interested? Why not? You can propose saying that we are a class of 30 students want to love YouTuber. And you can call a YouTuber who has made money, and believe me, it is a practical thing, isn't it true? So you don't have to hide from your parents and saying that, pata nahi meri bachchi kya karti rehti hai mobile ke aage. And they are so concerned about the cyber crime. Then you bring in a course and propose to your teacher saying that let's have a course on cyber crime and let's get the cyber specialist. So please understand, don't fight with your parents or teachers who don't understand anyway your generation. Contribute and saying that let's get that into the education system. Imagine you actually have an online course about cyber security where an expert comes and you 30 students, like today, the Lawtraction actually called me and said student initiative, isn't it true? So you can go and say that we want this course, and you actually can make your parents sit along with you and say, Mama, aapko dar lagta hai na main mobile pe kya karti hu, dekho, the best expert is with you. My dear friends, Chanakya was a practical philosopher. He was a practical teacher. Understand, instead of looking at what is empty, tell me what you can do to make it full. You have to contribute to the national education policy while implementing. Friends, I just want to stop by telling India was the richest country in the world. Okay? Chanakya made it. He was a great economist. Arthashastra. You know why it was the richest country in the world? Not because we had wealth. We had knowledge. Knowledge is the greatest wealth. And today, we are already one of the highest literate countries in the world. But remember one thing, we have to be in the field of knowledge. Whatever you do, please be knowledgeable and contribute to the field of knowledge. So if you're a politician, be a knowledgeable politician. Be a highly educated politician. Be a doctorate in political science. If you're a scientist, great. If you're into sports management, contribute to the research of sports management. Don't just be a sports person. That's what the freedom is. And the good news, you'll have a lot of money. You're not born in a poor India. You're all born in an India which is going to be rich. All of you should contribute, not just financial richness, but knowledge richness. National Education Policy 2020 gives us this opportunity that for the next 2000 years, mark my words, our generation can make India the strongest. Okay? We just have to work for the next 5 years, and the results we'll get for the next 2000 years. I've seen that with Chanakya. He made one education policy, how to create leaders in Arthashastra, and we're still benefiting from it. So our generation, which includes me as a teacher and all of us put together, the parents, the teachers, and the students, can create the greatest India that we will be proud in the future, not just glorify the past. So be a part of this great movement, historical movement that we want to contribute to nation building, and our role is education. Thank you so much. I'm ready for questions.
So many of the questions you already have answered. The queries have been solved. So one of the questions which is not solved is regarding the regional language which is being put by the government. So the participant is asking about that. Is there any danger of imposing Hindi on every Indian through NEP 2020?
See, I'll tell you something. I'll tell you Chanakya's story. Okay, before I come into the language question part of it. One of the very important leadership qualities is to learn multiple languages. Okay, so one is the education system, but I'll tell you something. I studied in an English medium school, okay? But I've been fortunate to learn 4 languages in my school. You know which were the 4 languages? English, because it's an English medium school. I was fortunate to study Malayalam in the school because that was my mother tongue. I studied Marathi because I'm from Maharashtra or Mumbai. And fourth is Hindi. Would you be surprised? I am now knowing 8 languages. Not because of the education system, because now I can know how to speak Sanskrit, read. I'm an MA in Sanskrit. I can actually learn Gujarati, speak Gujarati, Tulu, and so many other languages. And I realized, is it bad? Is it bad or is it good? You have to understand one thing. Instead of looking at what the language, you should be a learner of languages. And then, wow, I can learn this and this and that. See, this whole thing about regional can be a political debate, but you should say, I want to have the best of all the worlds. And I'll tell you the Chanakya story. In fact, Chanakya not only trained Chandragupta Maurya, he also trained Ashoka. It is said that Ashoka knew 27 languages and dialects, and he became a world leader. So learning languages, don't limit yourself. You'll be surprised. For example, suppose somebody comes to Maharashtra and he speaks in Marathi. Isn't he will be accepted locally? Suppose I go to Assam and speak in Assami, or I go to Japan and speak in Japanese, good or bad. So I think, instead of looking at a school subject, you should have a habit of, knowing multiple languages. The good news is that in India, anyway, an average child knows 4 languages, whether you like it or no. Your mother tongue, maybe a national language like Hindi, because even if the school doesn't teach you, the Bollywood impact is there. English language and one more extra language, So I think coming back to your technical question about regional languages, I think, accept it instead of fighting over it. In fact, I can see this happening, why should it be imposed? Why should it be imposed? So that's a political question or an administrative question. But my question is that why don't you learn? See, look at, Gujaratis, okay? They went to US, you'll be surprised, they accepted English as a language, but they never left Gujarati as a language. So they took their local languages everywhere. So you should be proud of learning multiple Indian languages. Why not? In fact, my biggest pain is that I only know 8 languages of India. And officially there are 18 languages. I'm still waiting for the remaining 10 languages. It is not about marks. Remember one very important point. Languages is a life skill. Languages is a life skill. What is the meaning of a life skill? See, there are different type of skills. For example, you want to get a job, okay, as a lawyer in one of the very big corporate firm. So if you're qualified, you say, okay, it's a professional skill that you have achieved. Suppose you're a chartered accountant. You say, I have the skill qualified to be an accountant. If I'm going to be a sports person, then I have a skill. Remember one thing, language is a life skill. It can help you throughout your life. Like, running is a life skill. You have to run. Swimming is a life skill. So what I'm saying is that forget the regional part of it. Take it as a life skill which will benefit you. One of our great presidents, okay, his name was P.V. Narasimha Rao. I don't know if you heard about him. He knew 16 languages. Yeah, bad or good? Good, right? So what I'm saying is that my father, by the way, my father knows 11 languages. I only know 8. So is it good or bad? So if you look at from the education perspective, giving an exam, then it's a very boring thing, because especially a lot of you are a grammar rule. That's another problem because we learn languages first through grammar, and grammar rules is so boring, isn't it? In fact, a lot of people hate languages because it's all grammar, adjectives, noun. I don't understand it. Same thing with mathematics. See, mathematics is a wonderful subject, but we teach them the rules and the theorems so much that you start hating it. Actually, mathematics is a fun language. It's a skill, isn't it true? It's a life skill. So I think somewhere the teaching methodology also has to be blamed, because we teach them on board and so many things. But today, look at an app like Byju's. What is it doing? It is giving you fun way of learning maths, isn't it true? So what I'm saying is that I wouldn't like to give it a saying that, non-political dimension, saying that it's a life skill. Come on. If there is a regional language, why not? So if you are, let's say, Gujarati in Orissa, learn Oriya. But don't forget to learn Gujarati and maybe Sanskrit also. And for those people who are hating, English as a language, saying, please understand, wherever you go, if you speak English, you'll be accepted. It's a life skill. So what I'm saying is that learning multiple languages, not the academic way. Okay, academic has got some strength and weaknesses, but it's a life skill. Learn more and more languages. You will become a leader. Remember, it's a leadership quality which will help you globally, lifelong. Thank you.
So the rest of the questions have been answered in your speech. So let us conclude the session. So as all good things comes to an end in life, so as this e-seminar. On behalf of Team Lawtraction India, I thank Sir Radhakrishnan Pillai for demonstrating good examples, quotes, and life lessons and clearing participants' confusion regarding this new policy. We express our gratitude for giving us this opportunity to host you, and a very big thank for making this evening a memorable for Team Lawtraction. We are really inspired by your great words, sir. Team Lawtraction also thanks our mentors, Mr. Saidev Singh, Mr. Abdul Qadir Pasha, and Ms. Bhumika Sharma. I, on behalf of Team Lawtraction, thanks all the participants for their interest and enthusiasm and making this a very precious event for us. Thank you for everyone who is present here. Have a good and healthy day ahead. Be safe, be healthy. Bye-bye. Thank you. Thank you. So let me know. No, so I think so. It's stopped. So Akshat, is live stopped?
How was it okay? How was it okay? Oh wow. Now you are listening as an organizer. Your mind was being to all the technical
Yeah.
side. But I hope the points covered were normal and okay and good takeaways.
Yeah. Everyone is appreciating. Everyone
Really?
is appreciating. Yes, sir. Like they're appreciating you very much for giving such an insightful session. We have learned a lot, and also we forgot to introduce ourselves because of the time constraint.
But if I did a faster, I thought it would go on to 6:30.
Yeah, but there were less of questions, so I thought so.
Good.
It,
You are
yeah.
making everybody happy. So come on, introduce yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm Priyanshi Sharda. I'm doing my BBA LLB from North Cap University, Gurugram, and I'm in my third year.
Oh, of course, I've been there. Many times. I've been there. Oh wow.
It is an inspiration, sir. It's a very big inspiration. You are inspiration for us.
So I'm a teacher. Really? Thank you. और मेरा ड्रीम है कि मैं आपके प्लेटफॉर्म में वापस एक बार आऊँ.
Sure, sir. We love to. We love to.
आप कभी भी next time ready हो, all ready for you because this program was fantastic. It was well organized.
Thank you, sir. And sir, we have two more members. They must be joining. They were looking for the YouTube part, so they must be joining. While that, we request you to be our mentor. Please be in our advisory board so that we can learn from you. Also, we have a lot of, as we want, like we have this entrepreneurial approach somewhere, and we really want to become entrepreneurs. We have some ideas, so we really want to discuss with you, have knowledge, and we love to.
You tell me next whatever meeting for the entrepreneur club or association. Let me know. I'll be happy to be part of.
Thank you so much, sir. So he's our third member.
Hello sir,
Hi.
good evening.
Good evening.
I am Hasimuddin sir.
अजमुद्दीन, आपका थोड़ा परिचय कहाँ पे पढ़ रहे हैं?
Sir, actually I am studying in Rajasthan University and basically I am from
Like a
Kota.